Welcome to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with your host, Rosalind Sedacca. Join Rosalind each week on a journey toward overcoming life's many challenges to achieve peace, empowerment, and positive transformation. It's time to relax, unwind, and transform your life with Rosalind Sedacca.
Hello, everyone. This is Rosalind Sedacca, founder of the Child-Centered Divorce Network, and you are listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sedacca. And as always, we invite wonderful guests to talk about subjects related to divorce or dating or living your best life. And today is no exception. I'm very excited about our guests. We have two guests, and they are both therapists, Kaye and Hara Wachholder, and they are a mother-daughter team who have gone through the process that we're going to be talking about, both personally and professionally. And they have written a wonderful workbook that I'm very impressed with. It's called My Parents Are Getting a Divorce. I Wonder What Will Happen to Me. This is a workbook especially for children, and it came to life through Karen's efforts of keeping her own child out of the middle of her divorce when Hara was young. Kaye has been in private practice in Weston, Florida for 37 years, and Hara Wachholder, her daughter, is the clinical director of a family therapy center located in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. So I'm very excited to interview you both and welcome you both.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
My pleasure. So, Karen, let's start with you because I understand that there's a personal story that led to the creation of your book, and I'd love for you to share that with our listeners.
Thank you, yes. When my daughter was about 18 months, I got a divorce, and years later, her father went for custody when she was about 10, which was absolutely horrifying. So for that year, I really struggled, in the courts and had a lot of stress and didn't know how it was going to end up. And it was a grueling experience. If anyone's been through this, they know it's terrifying. So at the end of that process, and I just kept asking myself questions like, why is this happening? Where did I go wrong? I mean, we go through so many emotions when you're powerless. And at the end of this, after a year of like a huge roller coaster ride, I said to my higher power that if I got through this and I kept my daughter, I would help people not go through what I did, or at least help them through the grueling process. And here we are 20 years later. It took a little while, and we finally finished the book, but this was a 20-year process that began when my daughter was actually 10, or just right after the court hearing. I mean, the proceedings were supposed to happen, and they stopped, thank God, right before in the mediation. And but the whole experience was terrifying to both of us. And, she was old enough to know what was going on without anyone saying a word, which is what happens to children. I think it's the unspoken word that can hurt a child as much as the spoken word. So I just felt like it was a cathartic process for us to write a book and at least start her journaling process to let me know what that was like for her, and it became our book.
Wow. Well, that's a very significant story, and I'm glad it had a happy ending, and I've seen the book. I'm very impressed with it because it's a book that parents can share with their children, and it opens the door to asking pertinent questions that get children to think, to respond, to contemplate, and to hopefully open up and share what's going on with them emotionally so that they're not holding on to fears and anxieties and guilt and shame and blame and all kinds of negative emotions that often impact children. So,
they don't even know what they're feeling. The big issue that I want people to do once they get our book is to please read the introduction, because I give instructions to the parents and to the lawyers or the school guidance counselors or therapists that you've got to be in a neutral place and be ready to hear things you don't want to hear, so that it doesn't become a forced issue and then you frighten the child. It has to be a blank canvas that the child writes upon for him or herself.
I love that. That is so, so important. Hara, let me ask you a question. As a child of divorce, what were some of the struggles that you faced during that really tough time?
Well, so like my mom said, I was about 18 months when the actual divorce happened, and I know this sounds strange, but I do remember my dad leaving. Obviously, I couldn't comprehend it at 18 months versus when the custody battle happened, but I do remember missing him and wondering if he was coming home or what was going on. So I remember being very confused. But I think the biggest struggle for me was actually during everything going on with the custody issue. I just felt really torn and stuck in the middle, and I felt like I was being pulled back and forth, and I wanted to please everyone, so I became a people pleaser, and it became a lot less of what Hara wanted in my mind, and it became more about what Mom wanted, what Dad wanted, what the courts wanted, what anyone else wanted but myself. And I think a lot of kids, feel that way or are worried about that happening. And so I guess the biggest struggle was really that I lost my voice. I lost myself for a little while during all of that.
That is such a relevant, important statement. And in my own childhood, my parents fought constantly and didn't get divorced, but I was in that same position of trying to fix things, put them together, please them, do what the best thing to make it right. And, of course, children are helpless to do any of that. Life is complicated enough for the adults, let alone expecting innocent children to be doing it. So you're in a no-win situation, and it takes its toll on you in a multitude of different ways. Is that right?
Absolutely. And you go through an array of emotions, and luckily, my mom had bought me a journal, so I had already started the process of exploring those emotions and kind of figuring out what I was feeling. My issue was growing up when I was reading some of the books that were out there is they kept telling me at this point in time I should be feeling angry, or at this point in time I should be feeling sad. And I kind of wanted to figure out what was I really feeling rather than being told how I should be feeling throughout the process.
Wow.
So, my whole purpose in my piece of the book was really making sure, as my mom said, that there's a blank canvas. We're not telling them how they should be feeling or what they should be doing. It's more of giving them that place to safely reflect on what they're struggling with or what they're going through or what their concerns are.
I love that. That's so important, and that word safety is really crucial. Children have to feel safe, secure, and supported, especially when they're going through such a difficult process as a divorce or separation for their family. So, Karen, as a professional, what do you see in your own private practice in regards to divorce, and what, again, spurred you to put this book together?
Well, first I want to comment to something you said about you, Roz, because one of my patients that read the book with her child said, you know what, Karen, this is a great book for children with married parents, too, because it's not like they're, getting an easy ride, too, because it's, again, it's the silence, it's the Cold Wars and all of those. But what I see in my practice over 37 years of this being one of my specialties is no child goes unscathed by their parents' divorce, and it is harder on the child. That being said, I don't think you're doing any good by staying married if you're not getting counseling and learning how to resolve conflict. So it's a difficult situation. But children will make it about them. They will always somehow take this on that they did something. The saddest one that I remember, a little child of 8 years old saying to me was, and it was hard for me to hold it together, when I was sitting with her, she said to me, "Karen, so if I had been a good girl, would my daddy have stayed?" And I just felt horrible knowing that even my own child felt that based on what Hara said before. So parents need to realize that no matter what you do, even if you seek counseling, the real issue is these children are going to take it on. And people have to remember that these aren't little suitcases that you're just passing back and forth, and that's how it becomes. You know, these are people. And we have to get clear on the fact that parents need to, first of all, look at their own emotions, because they're going to feed off of your emotions and how you feel also about the relationship. But we're asking our children, you know, their parents are part of them, like it or not, both parents. So imagine that a child is feeling comfortable in their home and one parent is like their best friend, and then they get pulled out of that home and they have to go somewhere else back and forth. And it's very unsafe. It's very unclear as to what's going on, and these children have to adapt to two separate homes, usually with two different parenting skills, if that, or they haven't even thought about it. And then too often people go into relationships as a quick fix for the divorce, and now these poor children are in like a blended family, and they don't know where they belong, which is exactly what happened to my child.
Yeah, so you felt it on a personal level, you're seeing it on a professional level, and that's why you knew you had to put something together. And this is different than reading a book with professional advice. This is an actual workbook. Again, the title, My Parents Are Getting a Divorce, I Wonder What Will Happen to Me. And it also says an interactive discussion book for children ages 4 to 12. So that word discussion is really crucial here, because we're talking about giving children an opportunity in this book to answer some of the questions, to think about some of the thoughts that are being discussed here, and use it as a journal, as a workbook, jotting down feelings and thoughts that maybe they haven't explored themselves, and certainly that their parents may not be sophisticated enough to be asking. So this is a tool, a resource that parents can use, that attorneys can use, that mediators can use, school counselors, clergy, anyone who is dealing with families, who cares about the well-being of the children. And as soon as we get back from break, we're going to ask some more questions about this so that we can get your insight, because it's such an important topic. Rosalind Sedacca with WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network, and we're going to be stopping for a quick break and getting right back to it.
Hi, I'm Cece Schatz, and I want to welcome you to Going Solo Next Step. We are an innovative, transformational site with a personal touch, as we are an online, interactive, social website connecting other like-minded individuals who are adjusting to their new life of being single. Going Solo Next Step will connect and help you deal with issues such as relationship loss, divorce recovery, relationship building, transition into dating, single parenting, spiritual connection, inspirational plus personal growth, sparking your career and understanding your life path, wants, and goals. As you begin relationship building, you will enjoy Going Solo Next Step social activities and forums designed to connect you and other like-minded individuals to make great, everlasting friends. Together, we will all have fun in growing number of social groups and gatherings, both in your location and online. This and so much more is in store for you. You can join me on www.goingsolonextstep.com. I'm looking forward to being with you right there on Going Solo Next Step. See you there.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Rosalind Sedacca You're listening to Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living with Rosalind Sedacca on WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. And we are talking to two licensed mental health counselors, Kaye and Hara Wachholder, and they are both the co-authors, a mother and daughter team co-authoring the book, My Parents Are Getting a Divorce. I Wonder What Will Happen to Me. I'm very impressed with the book, and that's why I wanted you ladies to be guests with me. So, Hara, why don't you tell us, because you are a professional in the field, what your perspective on divorce is. You experienced it as a child growing up, and now you have the experience of being a mental health counselor. What are you seeing, and how is this book useful for the families?
Currently in the professional world, I'm seeing a lot of throwing one another under the bus from the parents' end, and it's creating so much negativity that when a child comes in, they just unravel. They aren't sure what to say, what to do, and it's really not only teaching the children some healthy coping skills, but it's also teaching the parents. Where I'm at as a clinical director, my goal is to make sure we do a systemic approach. So I'm never just working with a child. I'm making sure that the parents are actively involved in the process. Otherwise, the issue that we see a lot in the therapy world is if we help children and we work with them and we build them up and we teach them self-empowerment and all these skills, they go right back into their home where it isn't being practiced, and so all of that work, it cancels out. So it's really important that everyone is on the same page. I think it's also crucial that regardless of where parents stand with one another, it's so important to really teach the co-parenting piece of this, that both of these parents signed up to be parents. Regardless of the status of their relationship, it's so important to make the kids important and remind them that they matter. From the perspective of being a child of divorce, this book was very healing for me and very powerful because most of my piece in this book was written when I was actually a child. So coming into it as an adult and looking back at where I was as a child, it was actually mind-blowing to me to see how much insight I had as a child, even before I went into this field. And I remember lacking a sense of self-esteem when I was little, and looking back, I'm like, wow, if only little Hara knew what big Hara knows now, it would really take me places. What I teach is, the metaphor of a volcano, and I think that'll really help with children understanding why it's so important to address feelings. Even a dormant volcano can be dangerous. All of the things that are building inside of us, that toxic waste, it has to go somewhere. And if we just keep pushing it down, it erupts without that control. So we have no idea when it's coming up. We have no idea what's going to trigger it. And everything comes out. And that can sometimes be therapeutic if it's done in a safe environment and it's processed. But if it just blows up, then a lot of things can happen. Either the child feels guilt or ashamed of what came up, or, it can lead to a lot of unanswered questions and cause more worries to come out of this. So what's really important is to remind children that it's really important to speak their mind, to speak up, and to not be isolated. I think the greatest blessing that I had in my life growing up when I was going through the divorce was actually, I want to give a shout out to my elementary school, Country Isles Elementary, because I think they were ahead of the times. My guidance counselor, Ms. Chermak, hello, she was amazing and put together a support group for children going through divorce.
Wow.
So it kind of normalized something where I felt like I was the only one going through this. And I got to be with peers that were also in the struggle and have conversations. They were expecting us to go to school and act like everything was fine, but there were days I just wanted to cry. So I would get, pulled out of the class, and they never pulled us out of a core class, just putting that out there. But they would pull us out and let us have that space to have a discussion. And that's really the essence I wanted to bring to this book, is allowing it to be interactive and something that can be practiced daily. So I hope I answered that question. I get very passionate and I go on tangents.
Well, I love your passion because you've been through it from childhood on, and it shows in the book, and which is also beautifully illustrated, and it's a lovely book, very compelling for children. They feel comfortable looking at it, and they know that this is for them, and you feel the passion that both of you share. Karen, what would you like to share with our listeners about the book based on what you heard Hara say and your own experience?
Well, I feel like she's a great example that my efforts worked, and I'm very proud of her as a human being and a clinician. And she just blows me away, thank God. But going back to our subject, I went into mom mode for a second. Two things that I was thinking about as you two were talking is, let's remember that divorce is the end of an unresolved marriage. And all that pain of not being able to work out the marriage comes out in the divorce, which is so overwhelming. So I want to say to the parents, as I went through, my daughter saw me cry. You know, she didn't know why I was crying, and I didn't put her in the middle, and I didn't tell her, you know, which is what I would ask all parents to do. But I let her see me cry because it gave her the right to cry. She saw me angry, and I think Hara remembers this, I don't know, but when she was 2 years old, I would get off the phone of a distressful conversation with her dad, and although she couldn't hear the conversation, she looked at my face, and I had created a game called I Don't Like This. And at 2 years old, my little one and I were going to the wall and banging on the wall, screaming, I don't like this.
Wow.
So I think it's okay to show your emotions to your children as long as you're not dragging them in the middle, and as long as they can see that you're getting better all the time and you're not going into any deep depressions or bringing other people into your lives prematurely, because they say that divorce is worse than death, and I've been through both in my life, and I would say that that's accurate. You know, because in divorce, someone's choosing to leave you, where death, it's out of your control. So it really does take a mourning and a grieving period that if you're not really working on yourself, you'll end up getting divorced potentially again, and the statistics are very much agreeing with me. Usually once you get one divorce, you end up in 2 or 3 divorces.
Yes.
And if you don't clean up, there you go.
Exactly. If you're not doing the inner work and learning the lessons from the divorce, there's nothing to keep you from repeating that pattern. And that's why I created so many dating and relationship books and courses after the divorce, because we want to stop that pattern from happening. So thank you for mentioning that. You also mentioned something that, because I also let my son, he was 11 when I divorced, and I let him see me cry and experience emotion too, without putting him in the middle of making choices, because you never want children to have to choose between their parents, but it's okay for them to see you expressing emotions and feelings. And similar to you both, I ended up creating my book on breaking the divorce news is also a workbook in the sense that it has fill-in-the-blank templates, and that's how do I tell the kids about the divorce, create a storybook guide to preparing your children with love. So it's a different time. It's when you're breaking the divorce news to the kids, which is most likely before your book comes into play, but they both have the ability for parents to customize and ask appropriate questions and create a positive environment for the children so that they're not feeling afraid or guilty or ashamed of being in this situation. And I thank you both for that. Hara, I wanted you to be able to share what your hope for the children reading this book is, since you know that position so well.
I want to start by saying something else that I thought of previously. When I was younger, aside from having that support group, something that I chose to do on my own was I love to read. And, of course, I was doing my journaling, but the reading, what I've realized as I've gotten older was the reading was more of an escape route for me. I could travel to a faraway land and imagine that things were better or different. And as I've gotten older, I've realized that isn't the approach that I needed to take. It served its purpose when I was little, but as I've gotten older, it was crucial for me to be aware of my reality and aware of the choices I was making. So, one, I see children becoming more solid and more aware and sure of themselves by doing this work and teaching the inner work at a younger age. Just like anything is a habit, learning to ride a bike, inner work is the same thing. What I get a lot of in my practice is parents just assume they're going to drop their kids off for one session and everything's going to be fine after that. We're good. We don't need to do anything else. And it's an ongoing process. It's something that you have to actively choose to do every single day. And it even takes a few minutes. It's not like I'm asking parents to sit there for hours on end unless that's what they need. But it's really just taking a little bit of time every day to be a little more mindful about choices and expressing thoughts and feelings. It's kind of weird that the only movie I could think of that really teaches about emotions is Inside Out by Pixar. I can't really think of anything else, but that's an assignment I usually give to divorced or divorcing families to really learn how we can all express our emotions. As far as my message for the kids, I just really want them to know that they matter and they aren't alone in this. There's so many kids going through this and so many families experiencing this that the worst thing we could do is isolate ourselves even more. Find that healthy support and be able to talk to people about what's going on, because we shouldn't have such a huge stigma against saying, I feel sad or I'm not okay. We don't have to always be smiling or feel like we need to be perfect.
Well, thank you for that. Before we go any further, Hara, why don't you tell us how people can find you and the books so that they can get access to this wonderful resource?
Absolutely. So I created a book domain, which I'm really excited about for our website. It's our landing page. If you visit this website, you'd be able to access all the links as to where you can purchase this book, as well as learn more about us. So the website is www.imstillmebook.com. We have links to our Amazon page, our bookstore online, as well as Powell City of Books and Barnes & Noble. So that's the best way to access the book and learn more about us. You can also learn more about my mother's practice by visiting her website at KarenKaytherapist.com. So that's www.KarenKayetherapist.com.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for that. Karen, let me give you the last word before we have to close our show. Your best takeaway advice for our listeners.
Take your time to heal. If you have the possibility to go with your co-parent to therapy to work out a co-parenting plan, that would be the best gift that you can give your child, that all the rules and energy of each house is similar, and they know that they have two houses that support the same thoughts and energy, and they're not pulled apart that way.
Wonderful. That's so, so important. We've been listening to Karen Kaye and her daughter Hara Wachholder, and they are the authors, the co-authors of the wonderful workbook, My Parents Are Getting a Divorce. I Wonder What Will Happen to Me. I highly recommend it. And you've been listening to Rosalind Sedacca on Divorce, Dating, and Empowered Living, WGSN-DB, the Going Solo Network. And let me just add that for additional co-parenting advice and support and a free ebook, you can go to childcentereddivorce.com, and right on the home page you can put your email address in and download my free ebook on co-parenting success strategies. That'll make a big difference. So you have lots of support and resources to help you do divorce in the best possible way, knowing that your innocent children deserve all the love, support, and attention that you could possibly be giving them during and especially long after this difficult time in their lives. Thank you both, Karen and Hara. You've been wonderful today.
Our pleasure.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure as well. Bye-bye to everyone. We'll see you again next time.